Hey, it's Alquincia Selawayne, better known to you as AKAnundrum, and you know why you're here. I know why you're here for another amazing episode of the Drum Circle Show. And let me tell you something. This industry that my next guest is in, this is probably one of the top tier questions that I've been asked over the years. How do you get a grant? Business grants. Like if you guys follow me for a while, you know, especially during the pandemic, I was really like pushing out all of the grant information, and everyone had so many questions about how do you apply? Like, what's the best way? Don't worry about it. We're going to address all of that now. So this is value packed. You want to be here, okay? So you know how I do. With no further ado, I'm going to allow my guest to introduce herself, her business, and then we're going to jump right into it.
My name is Christy Johnson, and I am the managing director for Your Grant Writer, which is a grant writing consultancy firm, typically helping nonprofits, but also small businesses, and really setting them up with the resources that they need to be able to apply and be competitive with a lot of the other organizations that are applying as well.
You know you're doing God's work.
Yes.
Okay, you're doing God's work out here because the funding situation is so real.
Yes.
And you know how most people are starting up, and most of our businesses start out of necessity to generate an income.
Yes.
Which means we're usually not in the best place credit wise when we start our startups. You know, we're not in the best place to seek investments in startups. Solopreneurs, 91% of our businesses, anywhere from 91 to 96, solopreneurs. And most of you guys may not know, investors don't really like solopreneurs. They like people who have a team of two or more. So we're just not in the optimal situation to get funding or loans or lines of credit. Grants, right? So please, for those who don't know, you know, we can't assume that everyone knows what a grant is. Can you please give them the basics on what a grant is?
Absolutely. So a grant is typically what we call a funding mechanism that is put forth either through corporate donors, through sponsors, sometimes through the government as well, in ways that you can actually apply to fund your business in ways that you don't necessarily have to pay it back. Now, I don't call it free money because you do have to end up, you work for it. So sometimes there are deliverables where you're completing a certain, task that you may have outlined in your application, or sometimes there's things like data tracking and things like that that you have to do. So usually, but it is funding that you get and you don't typically have to pay it back. Sometimes if you end up in a situation where you don't spend all the money within a certain amount of time, then you do sometimes have to return it. But it really just depends on who the funder is.
Okay, I see. Now I just learned something new. I didn't know that, you know, some of the spending has expiration date in
Yes.
which you have to return the baby. I'll be the fastest spender. Let me tell you something. Woo! Say less. What? Did you say find out how fast to spend it? So I had no idea.
Yeah.
So this, and I love the way that you said, no, it's not just free money, because that's what a lot of people think. Oh, it's the grant money, honey, it's mine, it's free, but you do have to work for that. So can you get into some of the expectations, you know, or qualifications that are required?
Sure. So typically, you'll see things like they may ask you to be in business a certain amount of time. They may ask to see your financials because obviously, if you're getting funding for, let's say, like a youth program, they want to know that after this initial seed funding, that you're going to be able to maintain this program after the fact. And so a lot of times they'll want to see your finances to see what that looks like. Sometimes it'll be data reporting. So if you were doing something in terms of research and you said, hey, we're going to, serve X amount of, patients or people, then they'll actually ask you for that data and how you tracked it and things like that. And so a lot of times they'll really like the types of things that they like to see is just that you're stable. It doesn't necessarily look at your credit necessarily, but it will look at your financials to see like, okay, are you underwater, in terms of your finances, in terms of the finances for the organization, and looking at those pieces, that's how they'll determine it. Typically, banks look a lot heavier. If you're applying for a grant from a bank, typically they will look at your finances a lot more than some of the smaller organizations. And a lot of times too, it depends on how much money you're applying for. Obviously, If it's $500, that's going to be a different application than if it's, $5 million. And so a lot of times just being, I like for people to be prepared to, be able to actually apply when they, getting them ready to apply. Cause sometimes people come up and they're not ready, so we got to get them into readiness too.
So what is that? So what is grant ready, right? Because
Mhm.
we see the applications, and what does that like? What are the basics that you like? Yes, you need to consider this before you apply.
Absolutely. So typically, what I do is I will do mission, what I like to call mission alignment. So before I, tell people, because obviously when you get it from internet or somewhere else, it's basically everything. It's not custom or tailored to what it is that you need or what your organization is. So typically, I'll look at funders and then look at what your mission statement is. Look at the things that you're trying to accomplish and see how closely the alignment is, and then recommend those funders to you. From there, it'll be a situation where it's like, hey, you might want to reach out to them, ask a few questions, kind of start building that relationship. Because also with grants, it's not always just that application. Sometimes it's the relationship piece of it too. So actually having a relationship with somebody at the funding organization helps out a lot, because that person is therefore, kind of almost championing on your behalf, because they understand what your organization is, kind of what it does, and those types of things. And so when you can actually get in contact with somebody at the funding organization, that's also a good part of readiness as well. What I like to tell people as well is having all of your formation documents ready. So all of your, all of your formations, articles of incorporation, those are the types of things that they'll want to see and they'll ask you for when you are applying.
That and you know what? That relationship component, I think that's really that right there is something most people probably are not even going to think about because we're seeing the applications online.
Yes.
Typically, it's an institution or a company that you don't have any affiliation with, and so you're like, okay, I'm just going to submit my application online, and and that's it. But what you said, it just reminded me of for you guys don't know, honey, I was a scholarship queen. Okay, let me tell you. And I remember when I applied, we know with scholarships, I think they're kind of akin to grants in the fact that my statement, my why, my journey was a large part of why I was awarded particular grants. I had all the qualifications, you met all of that, but it was that personal statement.
Mm-hmm.
And once I submitted my first round of scholarships and I won, I contacted the scholarship department. Hey, Susan Farish and Paula Avery. I'm Susan Avery and Paula Farish, if y'all listening. So I contacted them to like just because I was new, and I'm like, hey, okay, so what happens now and what can I do? And then they told me, okay, so you're going to submit a thank you letter, and that's really it. So I said, okay, what goes in the letter? What can I do? And so
Mm-hmm.
she started to tell me, like, yeah, it's just a letter. She said, you would be surprised that a lot of people never submit their thank yous. And a lot of scholarships are actually going away because the donors really don't have any idea if this is working. So they're clawing back funds for this, or, they in some scholarships, believe it or not, she said one went to a Caucasian woman because no one Black had applied for it. So she was like, okay, we're having a hard time getting people to apply
Mm-hmm.
and follow through.
Yes.
Say less. I asked her, what can I send? So I sent receipts from my daycare that I paid for. I wanted these people to know what I did with their funds. I
Yes.
sent pictures, I sent my transcripts, everything that I did. And then I
Mm-hmm.
sent it every quarter. I didn't
Excellent.
just send it on that quarter. I said, can I send it every quarter? She said, sure. So I updated the people to let them know that their donation was not in vain. We
Yes.
forged a great relationship. They
Mm-hmm.
then tapped into me and said, can we use you to solicit donor funds? Yes. What do you need from me? Can you
Mm-hmm.
also write a letter to financial aid on how scholarships have it? Say less. Can you
Mm-hmm.
be the keynote speaker? Say less. And
Yes.
then when I transferred over, there was one a year later, funds that had never been received. They sent me those. They said, "Hey, we never gave it to anybody," and they just sent me that $1,000. So you are absolutely right on that. And them knowing my journey, my story, that they could count on me, and it was
Yes.
reciprocal.
Yes.
Wow.
And that actually speaks a lot to when you actually get awarded, because a lot of times, depending on obviously how much money it is and how big the organization is that's funding you, they may not ask you for a report. And so, but you sending them that report still keeps that relationship going. And like you said, when they have extra money, when, they may go through their grant cycle and have extra money and, more donors than they anticipate or something like that, you're like first in line because they understand what it is that you're doing already. And so that is definitely one of the ways to go in terms of once you actually get funded. But I also say for people who don't get funded to also do that in the reverse as well. Because
Mhm.
sometimes finding out why you didn't get funded will assure that when you reapply, you're in a better position as well. And then also, again, establishing that relationship, because sometimes like, oh, I didn't get it, just kind of forget it and, never think about it again. But no, if you're going to like, if you find out why you didn't get it, it may be something in your application, maybe something didn't go through, maybe it was a technical thing, maybe, you didn't explain something a certain way for people to understand it. And that way you get that feedback that actually helps you refine your application. So it's not necessarily that you have to start from scratch every time, but in terms of tailoring it, you really get to understand what it is that funders are looking for when you get that feedback from them.
That I mean that and that part right there that you just said. If you didn't get funded, instead of just being dismayed, go
Yeah,
forward and find out so you can strengthen your next application, right?
absolutely.
Because
Yeah.
we have to understand the reciprocity. The people who are doing these endowments,
Mhm.
of course, they're doing this because they want results. They want to see you win. So
Yeah.
there's no better way to just affirm to them this is working and then to
Mhm.
help them grow by letting them see the actual KPIs, the key
Mhm.
performance indicators,
Yeah.
showing them that one, your funds are being utilized correctly and it is impacting my business. It is doing what you seek to do.
Mhm.
That gets them excited about it, right? So
Yeah.
that like this relationship component, like listen, I never thought about this. This is new to me, and
Mhm.
a person who did this in another, you know what I mean? But
Yes.
I just didn't even connect the dots there. So I thank you for this right here. Tremendous value. And
Absolutely.
so now, how did you start this journey as well into this industry?
So, completely by accident. So, it was by accident. I was working as a medical office assistant, kind of answering phones, insurance verifications, setting appointments, etc. And one of the physicians that I work for, he came to me and said, I want to apply for this grant. Can you figure this out for me? And at the time, they didn't have them online. Internet was like, I was a fax machine baby, one of those. And so, he comes to me with this, 100-page booklet and say, "Can you figure out how to apply?" And so I went through it, like read through the whole thing and like got him ready to put all of it together. It's like, what is it that you want to do? Okay, so based on what you want to do and what it is they're looking for, these is how these things align, talk these things up. We have to figure out, certain pieces. And it just, it came together. And once I started doing it, I actually really liked it. And then I got to see kind of the other side of it, which is the accounting and like financial management of it as well. And then you kind of get to see for I would say for research and kind of for medical and hospital and stuff like that, you get to see the people that it actually impacts. And so kind of getting to see all of those different pieces, I was like, I was hooked. I was into it because I just thought I was going to be a writer, like writing books. And I got into this and didn't look back.
But grant writing, so and here's the thing too. Your writing skills, I can only imagine how beneficial that is
Mhm.
helping people to write those letters. Can you do please? Because everyone's like, oh my God, like how do I write the letter? What do I write in the letter? Like if you have any suggestions that can help people for clarification of what these letters are like and what people are sort of looking for the most part.
Absolutely. So, one of the great things to do is talk about your mission statement and again, how it aligns with their mission statement and how it aligns with what it is that that organization
Wait,
actually.
wait, wait. Can you repeat that again?
Yes.
That's that part right there.
Yes. So looking at your own mission statement and looking at the
Mhm.
mission statement of the organization and how they align, how it is that you all can serve each other in terms of the work that you do. And so really explaining that and how all of that comes together in terms of what it is that you're going to be working with and doing, they love to hear about that. They love to hear about your successes as well. And the other piece that I would say is, like I say, even if you're a new organization, make sure your financials are in order. Know what it costs to run your programs. Know what it costs, like you're going to pay yourself. You're going to pay, vendors. You're going to pay for software and computers and things like that. actually knowing what your budget is going to be and not having to technically make it up on the fly. Like, know the budget for your organization as well, because that means that you have all of your ducks in a row. You know what this is gonna, like, what it takes to run your business. Because a lot of times I think people just, figure they'll run their business as money comes in, but no, really having a clear idea of what it costs to run the business that you're trying to run is also just as important. It really is.
Yes, and that part as well too is, to me, I remember applying for crowdfunding. This was
Hmm.
in 2000 and I think 13 or 14. Very
Hmm.
small. It was for this lock therapy product that I was creating, which was really just a little side hustle. I was working on my business, and so I, was a fan of Kickstarter and
Hmm.
all of that. So I started the journey. Mind you, this is just $535. That's what I was looking for. This is a small little thing, right? And
Hmm.
what I loved is when you start that application process, it forces you to critically think. Now, mind you, I had done my business plan for my business, but the side
Hmm.
hustle I hadn't done it for. So it forces you to critically think and be able to demonstrate your intentionality, your ability,
Yes.
right? And things of that nature. So I'm only hearing how this grant process will strengthen you for the bank loan if you ever so need one,
Yes.
or taking on investors. Because
Yes.
when you go through all of these questions and getting that
Mhm.
stuff formulated, that
Yes.
can only accentuate it. And I also love that you said the successes in the letter, because I got really good at my scholarship letters.
Hmm.
And I think that most people kind of think, oh, let me just demonstrate, oh, I need it, oh, poor me, help me. No, listen, people are rooting for the underdog, but they want an underdog that can win. So
Yes.
when you just come in talking about, oh, I need it, oh Lord, just, that's not going to help you. It's okay. For me, it was okay in the scholarships. You can touch on your past, but you want to touch on how you've overcome it. You are moving forward, right?
Absolutely.
That in spite of those challenges, you are a fighter and you are here to win. So they
Absolutely.
need to know that their investment will not be in vain, And
Absolutely.
so that's, I would say, definitely lean into your strengths. Don't
Yes.
just sit there and write a whole poor me letter.
Yes, absolutely. No, 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 no. You absolutely want to look at it also from the perspective of, you know, you want them to see the vision that the way that you see it. So everything perfect, everything fully funded. If it's all coming together like it's supposed to come together, describe what that looks like. Because a lot of times when people are applying for funding, they think about, oh, well, right now it looks like this. Right now it's this. And so sometimes it's small, right? And sometimes it's too small. And so then you have to look at it from the perspective of, like, if everything is going exactly the way it's supposed to be, where am I going to be? What does my timeline look like? What am I doing? Who are the people that I'm serving? How does my business run? And so that's where you really can outshine and really talk about those strengths and, the strengths that you're talking about, and letting them see the vision from your perspective. Because a lot of times, like I said, we just look at it like, oh, well, I need the money and this is kind of what it looks like right now. And it's kind of a, side hustle. They hear that, it comes out in the writing, right? It comes out in the writing in terms of that kind of almost like that indecision or that lack of confidence. But having that confidence and like, hey, everything, on 100, this is what it looks like. This is the vision. This is who we help. This is how it works. And it comes out. It really does.
And I mean, we even think about the artists that we fall in love with on the underground.
Hmm.
We see them where they are. But if
Hmm.
you think about it, most of those artists, they're constantly telling you about their bigger vision. They're
Yes.
constantly telling you, oh, we're going to the top. I'm
Yes.
naming and claiming. I'm manifesting. You know what I mean? Like, they're
Yes.
putting it into the universe. We
Yes.
get excited about that,
Yes.
right? We'll take
Yes.
them where they are, but we believe in them. And we're like, I want to go with this person on this journey, and
Yes.
they're going to make it. And
Yes.
so I look at it the same way. Donors get that same excitement, like, wow, this
Hmm.
person is going to make it, and they want to be a part of that journey.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
wonderful.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you too, you're helping everyone else
Hmm.
to embark on their journey,
Yes.
your journey, right? What? She said, oh, okay. So your journey,
Yeah.
right? Because people are looking, especially when you're the person who services businesses.
Hmm.
They think, oh, you got it perfect. You together. Like, you looking at the doctor like, oh, I know you the picture perfect health. You looking at your dentist like, I know every tooth in your mouth got to be good. And you don't assume that those people are going through things. But I always tell people, look at some of your best hairstylists, honey. They're walking around with a bun because they usually don't even have time to get to them because
Yeah.
they're so busy working on everybody else, myself included. Like, trust me, I'm out here advising and helping, and in the background, I'll be like, oh, Lord Jesus, I just did her EPK kit. I need to update my EPK kit, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
sometimes we are often, still dealing with things as we're
Yeah.
helping other people. So what has your journey been like being this person helping?
My journey has actually been really strange because initially I didn't plan on being an entrepreneur. And so, I would kind of pick it up here and there. People would, ask me like, "Oh, you write grants?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And they're like, "Oh, can you do a grant for me?" And, yeah, sure, no problem. And we kind of worked through it. And then I got to work I actually got out of the industry and was sitting in the office, and it was just like every day I would be like, if I was home, I could do this so much better. If I was working from home, I could do this so much better, right? Like just like, oh, I don't want to do this. Like I need to find something else closer to what it is that I want to do. And within 2 months, COVID hit. And within 2 months, COVID
So
hit.
you, so you manifested COVID. You sitting up there telling the universe that you wanted to be at home working, and you just sent the whole world home. Now okay. So if y'all want to know, y'all out here blaming Wuhan. It was Christine. Christine is the one that sent
Yeah,
y'all all home. You just
yeah,
heard it right there yourself.
yeah. And so once I actually started doing that, it was just like, well, okay. I was like, well, now that craziest way ever to actually, get what you were manifesting. I was like, but now that I kind of got the way that I was manifesting, I was like, do what it is that I said I was going to do. So that's one of the things that I just picked it up and I started like looking for jobs that for people that were nonprofits that were looking for grant writers. And I got to learn about a lot of different industries that way. And so, I mean, I got to learn about energy. I got to learn about workforce development, like STEM, coding, housing. Just it really opened up the doors. And so I've been doing it ever since. Like ever since technically, in terms of post-COVID and everybody like returned to work and stuff like that. But it's actually still been that. But it was like challenging to me initially because I never thought that the entrepreneurial path was going to be the one that I would go down, and it ended up being where I'm at.
Sure. And then when we think about, what you just said, learning all these industries, it
Yes.
it reminds me of earlier when you said making sure that what you're doing is in alignment with what they're doing. So if you're going after a grant that is
Mhm.
energy centric and you
Yes.
have a sustainable component to your business, that's really the thing that you want to illuminate, right? That's the thing that you want to touch down on. And
Yes.
so seeing what is their goal and then
Mhm.
just bringing forth that aspect of your business
Yes.
that is in alignment with that. And I teach people that too when they pitch
Yes.
is you can't have that one canned pitch. You
Mhm.
have to have different aspects of your business.
Yes.
And then you say, okay, so if this person is talking about sustainability, do I have a sustainability component to my business that I can lead with? You know what I
Yes.
mean? Let me put that at the forefront of the
Yeah.
conversation. Wow.
Absolutely.
And so there's a lot of, I didn't know that there's so many that are like that key specific.
Yes. And one of the things that actually you just brought up is that even like within your business, so there might be a grant that, like you said, is talking about sustainability, or it might be a grant that talks about, funding for just different pieces that could just fund different pieces of your business. So it might be something along the lines of like right now there is um there's a grant, it's from FEMA, but they do it for nonprofits for them to harden security within your organization. But that could be like, it's not cybersecurity though. So it's could be cameras, fences, things like that. And so in terms of understanding what like that's why I say it's important to understand what your business is, because you can also get certain sections of your business funded with grants and not necessarily think of it like, oh, one grant is going to fund the whole thing, or one grant is just for one thing. So yeah, being creative and understanding kind of like, okay, this is what we're looking for. So like you said, with your business, sure, you're like, okay, well, this is great, but I need equipment, like, I need equipment. So okay, then what do equipment grant, what kind of equipment grants are there out there that could actually help you? Like sometimes people want to do community project, like they want to do a park or they want to do just different things. And it's like there's money out there for all these things, but it might not, fund everything at one time. But you can get those little sections of your business funded that way.
So it's not held against you for applying and receiving multiple grants.
No, no.
Okay, that's how scholarships
That's
work. No one ever held that against me. You get all that you can get.
actually it's a bonus
Mm.
because is that's your resume, right? So if like case in point, if Bank of America is willing to work with you, or if Wells Fargo or Citibank or whoever's willing to work with you, then federal government's like, oh, okay, well they might be all right, So that becomes your resume in terms of actually getting funding because they ask you like, where else have you gotten funding from? Have you gotten funding from related organizations to us? Because sometimes they'll name specific organizations like, have you received funding from any of these organizations? And yeah, so depending on what grant you're applying for, they do ask you those questions. Absolutely. And it's not held against you.
So now, what is the process like for someone who wants to work with you, right? So
Mhm.
they're looking for funding. So of course they're like, can I afford this service? Like how is that process?
Okay, so typically I do customize the process based on what it is that the person is looking for. Some people are just looking for like grant readiness, like they know their organization inside and out. Somebody they may have been invited to actually apply for a grant and they're just like, okay, we need to put this together. So I do actually work with them just based on what it is that they need. I do, kind of annual contracts if you need like you have a certain amount of grants that you want to reapply for or apply for. Because some people are already deep in the grant game and they don't got time to apply no more. So they don't have time to apply on their own anymore. So a lot of times they already have that grant calendar. They already know what it is that they want to do. So I work you typically on an annual basis with them. We'll set up an annual contract, lay out what everything is. And typically there are people who are just like, I don't know a lot about anything. And I tell them, hey, we can work around this hourly rate. I'll start off with like hours not to exceed XYZ just to be able to fit budgets because I do want to work with smaller organizations because they need the most help. And a lot of times they're the ones that are actually doing like the most direct work. You know what I mean? Especially when it comes to nonprofit sector, like the people who can actually do to make the most impact, like boots on the ground, are, can't get that level of resource to even be able to apply for funding to get to where it is that they need to go. So a lot of times I do like working with smaller organizations. And so I'll work with them kind of within your budget. What's your budget in terms of what you're looking at? We can look at these things. I can get you started, even if I don't get all the way through it, but I'll get you started in terms of like, these are the things to do, not do, etc. And I mean, I do grant review, kind of the whole deal.
Okay, wonderful. Now, can you dispel if you have any or debunk any myths that you constantly find yourself having to correct or assumptions of people looking for grants?
Oh, the free money one is definitely the biggest one. The other one is I think it's that it money for nothing, but like things like, oh, is there a grant for me to, go buy a new car?
Mm.
Like,
Now, see, this is why y'all can't have nice things.
just
This
like
is why y'all
unrelated.
can't have nice things. The people out here trying to help you fund your business, and you out here trying to fund your vehicle.
Yeah,
Okay,
but
see,
yeah. But just like things I mean, certain things like I don't and like the grants that I typically don't deal with, like I don't deal with grants that are like energy assistance types of things because typically those like organizations aren't eligible for those. That's like individuals. So typically I don't work with individuals on, grants. So typically they have to do that work themselves. But a lot of times it's like understanding that if you're gonna get a grant that is to help your business or to help your nonprofit, it has to be for that reason. Like it can't be these kind of outside, weird sorts of things that don't really necessarily align. And then the other thing too, sometimes people go way outside of scope just in terms of like trying to like grab money. So a lot of times, and I know it sounds crazy, but don't ever apply for a grant for the money.
mm,
You should
okay.
you should always be applying for the grant because it is a good fit for what it is that you're trying to do. Never do it for the money.
Wow, wow. So it's just so it's not just the money focus. You're not just looking at the denomination.
Yeah.
And so do some of the grants also come with additional support? for your
Yes.
business.
Yes.
Okay, what does
So
that look like?
so sometimes with grants they will give you depending on what you're applying for, they'll give you technical assistance. So
Mm.
anytime that you see a grant where they say we're offering technical assistance, that's the piece that's like the mentorship. That's the piece that is, getting, I mean, sometimes I actually got paid through somebody who applied for a grant for technical assistance, and they actually paid for them to have a grant writer. Yeah, so they actually like
Wait,
paid.
okay, so wait a minute. Wait.
Mhm.
Okay, run that back.
Certain
So
organizations.
so this person applied for a grant,
Yes.
and then the grant paid them to find a grant writer.
Yes.
Did they win the grant?
So what they did, they actually it was a small grant, but they part of the award was like $5,000 to pay consultants and assistants to get them prepared for the larger application. So yeah, so the initial thing that they applied for, I think, was like maybe $10,000. And so $5,000 of it was the technical assistance, basically getting them like helping them hone their idea down,
Oh my God.
getting their
Baby,
idea
see,
together.
now that's what I'm talking about. What? So okay, I'm trying to get the money. They said, you know what? We're gonna give you some money to get you ready to get the money.
Yes. Yes.
I need that grant. That we need to find what was that grant. Okay, did y'all hear this?
Yes.
Listen. And then there's some that have like follow-up mentorship, because sometimes simply giving a person money does
Yes.
not equate success. We
Absolutely.
see billion-dollar people funded businesses go under, right?
Yeah.
So having the finances, but then having someone to also guide you through, I think those would be absolutely tremendous, or accountability partners. Now, let's
Mhm.
suppose you do everything right, you get the grant, you do everything to the best of your ability, but
Mhm.
you don't meet the benchmarks
Mhm.
that you said in your letter. Do they come back and say, you got to give us back our money?
It depends, but usually they'll outline that before you ever sign a contract to get the first check. So usually they'll outline all of that up front. And a lot of times, if you stay in communication with the organization you got the money from, then a lot of times they'll and like express your challenges to them. Don't feel like you got the money and like now almost like you work for them and you can't come to them with problems, or you can't come to them with challenges or things like that. Because a lot of times they'll understand. Case in point, when COVID happened, I mean, supply chain was crazy, right? So if you had a capital grant that you had to spend in 6 months, where was you going to get anything from at
Right.
that point? So
Even the payroll that people couldn't, pay their employees because they weren't coming back in. Mm-hmm.
absolutely, absolutely. And so just staying in contact with whoever, they'll get usually they'll get a program manager or program officer at the organization. Stay in contact with that person. Like once you get the money, that's not the end. Once you give them a final report, that's not the end. Stay in contact with them. Let them know that there are challenges that you're having. I mean, it could be a situation like right now, hiring is kind of hard for everybody, right? Turnover is crazy and all that. So if you're saying, okay, I'm using this money to hire somebody, like hire a writer, hire this person, and you just not getting applications in the door, stay in contact. Let them know, like, hey, we're having challenges with this. This is what's happening, kind of where the progress of it is, what our new timeline is. Keep them involved. Like that's the thing too. They want to be involved in the process. They don't want to just give you this money and never hear from you again. They really do. When they give you that money, they really do want to start a relationship with you. And it could also lead, like I said, to other things where they're giving you additional funding. Like when they know your business that much, they know that you're trying, they know that you're really putting in that kind of work. They definitely want those relationships, and they love to keep those relationships going. Absolutely.
That is so. I mean, this is you like one. You've opened my eyes up even to a whole different perspective on that. This is so valuable, and I think right now with this economic downturn,
Mhm.
grants are going. Banks are not lending.
Right.
We're seeing this left and right.
Mhm.
So grants are going to be a way that a large amount of us. I'm still tripping that you said you got people who do annual because they got a whole calendar of grant. Did y'all hear that? It's people out here with grants on schedule. People
Yes.
people got a calendar of grants that they are applying for,
Yes. I do
enrolled
create that.
heavily.
I do work, and I
Okay,
work with people to create that. Absolutely. Absolutely.
this is not a game. So they
No.
are staying abreast to when these grants are coming out.
Yes.
So are those some of the products that you provide too? Do you have anything that like lets people follow you and know when the grants come out and they're released? Because most people don't even know
Absolutely.
where to go to get that information.
Oh, absolutely, yes. So usually I do post grants on my LinkedIn. You can find me at Christy Johnson or Christy A. Johnson on LinkedIn. And then I have yourgrantwriter.com, which is my website, and Your Grant Writer on Instagram. So I'm in all three places. I talk about grants. I talk about like how to get them, post award management, because a lot of people get messed up with post award management, and that's how you lose your grant. And that's also not good, because if you end up losing a grant because you didn't manage it well, that also reflects badly, because sometimes, other applications will ask you like, hey, so did you have to return money? Were you in
Right.
compliance? So I do help people with post award management as well.
This is amazing. So one, you said yourgrantwriter.com
Yes.
is how people can find you, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
then you're on LinkedIn, but your grant writer is the main place that people can find you and book
Absolutely.
you and
Yes.
consult with you.
Absolutely.
Okay. And so do you have any sort of like a resource sheet or anything like that? Or any kind of like ebooks or referral pieces?
Yes, I do have a resource sheet just to kind of let people know like what are those top 10 kind of things that you need to have and be prepared with when you're getting ready to apply for a grant. So typically I like to tell people like make sure you have these like 10 items when you're ready to apply for a grant, and that way you'll at least have a basis for getting started and starting to develop your narrative. So
Now,
yes,
do
I do.
you have anything like that for sale? Like a checklist for sale with the references, maybe a live reference sheet to the links that
Yes,
updates. Do you have
yes,
anything like that?
I do have that on the website. Yes.
Okay, fantastic. And guess where else is going to be?
On
On
your
Shop at Conundrum.
yes.
We're putting that up in there, and I'm
Okay.
going to feature that in
Okay.
my store and link it
Yes.
to your site.
Okay.
Okay. So
Okay.
that people can see this, because this is a huge resource. I will not be getting a dime from this. I'm not taking any affiliate, any nothing, no commission, no nothing. I'm just going to simply showcase you and link it so that people can get those resources that they need, that you have available, because I just know right now this is the time they're going to need it the most.
Absolutely.
I listen, if you watch the show, I typically have a gem dropping moment. I couldn't even drop no gem. She dropped all the gems. I didn't even get a gem drop moment in here. Did y'all notice this? We did not cut to my little fancy sparklies, because the person who started to shut down, then shut down the gem dropping moments on the AKAnundrum show. Christine Johnson is who y'all have to point and blame. Okay.
Yeah.
I am so grateful for
Yes.
you just bestowing this amount of information onto people, because we really need this, right? You're talking about value driven right here. There's so much insight to glean from. I appreciate you and I value you so very much, and I thank you, and I will be utilizing your services, because I gave out, I was one of the type of people where I didn't need the money, so I gave the grants, and people come to me and be like, "Sis, how do you apply?" I said, "I never applied. I literally, because at the time I was like, I didn't need it. So I
Right.
gave it." And so even for myself now, I'm like, you know what? Good sis.
Yeah.
I'm considering my nonprofit, and I'm considering ways that I also, because we want to give,
Yes.
but I can't give, you know what I mean? So I want to figure out a more efficient and effective way to give. And so it's
Absolutely.
like, if I kind of revamp my business structure as well, then I
Yeah.
can actually do more. And
Yes.
so I'm looking, that's on the top of my brain. So my questions, were coming literally from my brain as well. And I know everybody else was asking those questions. So I thank you
Yes. I got
tremendously.
one more thing for you. One more thing for you.
Yes.
So I tell people all the time, and I know it's a hot button topic, especially now, but voting. Voting
Mhm.
actually plays a big part in what projects, what money is out there to fund projects. So looking at your candidates, when you see that presidential candidate come up, what is he like? What is he touting? What is he talking about? So during Trump's presidency, there was a lot in terms of border security, a lot for police forces, a lot for military. During Biden's administration, now we're looking at a lot of infrastructure grants. So there's a lot of stuff in terms of for the energy, for your grids, and all of that kind of stuff, for infrastructure, roads, all those types of things. Those are the types of grants that are out there now. Way back when we were dealing with Obama, he was pushing STEM. So there was a lot of STEM grants. There was a lot of, grants obviously for education, a lot of grants to get people into, obviously medical fields and things like that. So paying attention to what is there. And that also trickles down through your state as well. So the candidates that you put in office, they decide where that grant money goes. Every state has grant money. Every state applies for grants. And what those candidates is important to them is what they're going to fund. So that is one of the things that makes voting important in terms of where that money
Right,
goes.
right, because they're deciding based on their campaign promises, based on, who it is that they're trying to appease,
Yes.
where that money gets allocated.
Yep.
It's there. They just
Yep.
decide what direction it goes in. What is
Absolutely.
a priority to them? And
Yes.
so, even for you, even saying that, if you go now, even onto your city sites and your county sites, you see a lot of grants and you see what their primary focus is,
Yes.
And so we did see largely, I'm going to say diversity, equity, inclusion
Yes.
was a very hot topic,
Yes.
but right now it's getting a bullwhip effect
Mm-hmm.
because people are now,
Turning. Yeah.
okay, they're
Yeah.
reversing
Mm-hmm.
their position, their interest, and their concern. I believe that they said this last quarter, the terms diversity, equity, inclusion, or even the conversation was down 31% on
Absolutely.
the CEO calls. So,
Absolutely.
just paying attention. And mind you, if that was your jam, you
Mm-hmm.
may now want to reposition
Yes.
yourself to what she said. What is in alignment? Because you may have a component of your business that still satisfies the new criterion.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for bringing that up. Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. So I hope you guys got, I know you did. I'm not even gonna say I hope. I know for a fact. I know you got value out of this. I thank you so very much for pulling up on another episode of the Drum Circle Show. And again, yourgrantwriter.com.
Yes.
Okay, that's where you can go and get everything that you need to know, and then he'll have someone to assist you, like she said, on the beginning of the journey, during the process, and even post fund management,
Yep.
right? So that you don't get your money taken back from you, and then you get a good reputation and you're able to keep getting it. Okay, because I know one thing: scholarships changed my life. It funded my entire college career, put additional money in my pocket. It was the make or break. So if your business is feeling any sort of tension right now, this is the time. Okay. Don't just focus on GoFundMe's. Go to yourgrandwriter.com.
That's
All
right.
right. You guys have a fantastic day, and I will see you on the next episode of the Drum Circle Show. Okay. Bye bye.